And welcome back, and we welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're moving into our first segment for the morning. Like we mentioned, there are many steps to life, but there's also steps to building wealth. And in with us, actually, to tell us more about it is Ervin Perez, who is a financial advisor at Legacy Fund Limited. Sir, good morning. How are you?
Good morning and Happy New Year's, guys.
Happy New
Year's,
Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's going to be a prosperous New Year.
Let's hope.
That's why we have you here.
Yes.
Let's hope I have advice
To
that
tell
will
us how
help.
to make it happen. So,
yeah.
Ervin, we have talked about recovering from Christmas, which is
Yeah.
a real situation that people have been put themselves in
Yeah.
since last year. But one of the things we don't normally talk about is how to build wealth. And when we say wealth, I think people think extreme wealth. But what do you define as wealth?
Well, yeah.
So, the best definition I've heard of wealth is the number of days you cannot work and be okay. Cool. That's wealth. That's having wealth. So if you cannot work for 4 years and your living standards are the same, you're pretty wealthy. If you can only not work for half a day and then you start starving, so that's a definition if you want. The number of days you
if
don't
the opposite
have to
of that
work.
is poor, quite a bit of us are very poor.
Yeah, but one thing I was speaking to one of your producer, and she was saying like a lot of people find it extremely difficult to save.
Yeah.
And I just we have to be honest with our audience, no?
Yeah.
Unless you come from a family of wealth and then you have inherited wealth,
Yeah.
then if you don't know how to save, you will never grow wealth. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Saving is the absolute necessary discipline to build wealth. And saving really is simply living below your means. So if you're making $1, you live on 90 cents. Basically that's what it is. Or you live on 95 cents. But once you can do that, you start building wealth. You start creating a savings, and then you use that savings for whatever else you want to do. And we have a basic 4-step slide we wanted to show you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
Can I ask a question though? Because
Yeah.
I think saving is one of those things
Yeah.
that we're taught, and
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that. Like if you come from, I found that people who come from a family of savers, or they have a parent that saves, they naturally have the habit. While others who have come from parents who perhaps were stretched tight or squandered or didn't have good money management, it tends to be something that trickles down.
Absolutely.
What can you do in your household to try to instill it in your younger ones?
So the things that we've always recommended for parents is to provide your kids with allowance, but allowance that they earn. So that's the first thing, that teaching them the discipline of working for what they want.
Yeah.
So basic household chores could be your first set of chores. So if you wash the dishes, you get $1. If you sweep the house, and some parents believe, this should be just their duty.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's good, but you also want, as you said, you are the first teacher for your kids.
Of course.
And so if you can help to show them that if you put in an effort, that's how you get a reward. And out of their earnings, what you want to create is, we call it the fun piggy bank and the savings piggy bank. So you tell the kids, create two little, you buy them if you want for them.
Yeah.
And out of the money that they've earned, because they're kids, we like to go half-half, right? So put 50% of what you've earned in the fun piggy bank, and put 50% in your savings piggy bank. And the fun piggy bank is like, if you take out your kid, and they want to buy something, you might give them a budget. If they want to buy more than that, bring your fun piggy bank. You're going to spend your own money on that, right? So, you might go out and there's just the plain ice cream. Your kid wants a sundae. Okay, we're going to go half-half on that sundae. You bring your fun piggy bank. So they learn how to work and earn, and they learn how to divide between long-term, desires. So that's the savings piggy bank, and you can tell them you're saving for college, you're saving for high school, depending on their age.
Yeah.
And the fun piggy bank is your spending money. You don't have to worry about that. You can just spend that.
That's for the snack.
That's for the snack. That's for the extra ice cream.
Supermarket run.
That's for the supermarket. And the other thing is, it is also good to take your kids to the bank or to the credit union, right? When their savings piggy bank has reached a certain amount, because you don't want them to save and not learn that money can earn money.
Yeah.
So usually I would do it once a month with my son or with my daughter. Once a month, you tally up what they've saved, and you also show them how they do a ledger. This is 5 cents, 10 cents, and you tally it up, And if you've opened an account with Heritage or Atlantic or any of the banks or with the credit union, the HRC St. John's in Belize, then you take them with you. You want to take them with you, and what we do is we double up. So if you've saved $10, we'll double it up and give you $20 in your savings. So you show them the real benefit of multiplying money. So it's a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Working with your kids to do that.
Yes.
And hopefully those habits will build, right? So you're giving them a lot of incentives to build the right financial habits. One, to separate their money from their fund money to their long-term savings money, and also to take it into a financial institution.
And one of the things that I like to jump on when it comes to things like this, Marlene would know, I like to find the fun aspect, because for kids, it's all about fun.
Yes.
Yes, savings for them might be, Daddy, want me to save again? It seems like work.
Yeah,
When you take the child out to the bank, that's a nice ride.
yeah.
You've got the earning or the money for the spending to buy that snack.
Yeah.
But most importantly, you're actually taking them to the bank
Yeah.
to do some saving. At what point would you say you start taking your kids in there? Because we know for a fact that they're sponges and they will learn. At what point do you do this?
I think, from the time your kids can start kindergarten, you're taking them out to that, it's always, I would take them, because it's important that they really build the habits from young, understand what the value of banks or credit unions are, understand and actually see why I like the passbook, because now sometimes, you have a statement. The passbook is for them to actually see and see their money go, right?
So there still is a purpose, okay.
Yeah, there's a purpose in the passbook. And so it's looking at it and you see, look, oh, I have so much money, right? So it's a good thing. And like you said, it's part of it is spending time with dad or spending time with mom and doing grown-up stuff.
Family, yes.
Yeah, so it looks good.
All right. So that's how we start
That's rule
with the
one.
kids.
You have to start saving, and you have to live below your means, and you're showing your kids that they're earning their monies from allowances in the home, and they're only consuming a small part of that, so they're living below what they've earned.
How do we get here? Especially in a community where I think the concept of paycheck to paycheck is one that everybody subscribes to.
So we have an innovative thing, but I'll go to that after we go to the 4 steps.
So the second.
So the next one after, start by living, you have to spend wisely. I mean, and that's something that's difficult, but you always have to try to understand the difference between needs versus wants. I mean, because if you're making $1 and you're living on 90 cents, then you really have to prioritize what is it that I'm going to spend on. And I usually say, the first, what we call the first needs, you have to make sure you meet your rental payments or your mortgage, your utility bills, and then you want to try to consume less with everything that you're doing. So there's nothing wrong with trying to save on your electricity and so forth. I know everybody's saying the rates are going up, but you also have to try to conserve your consumption, right? That's very important. So invest. The third one, I think we went to the third one. So the second one was spending wisely. The third one is invest in what you know. And I put Bitcoin here as an example, because I get a lot of people that call me, what about Bitcoin? What about this? Yeah,
it's a following situation.
Yeah, it's just, it's, and one thing you will understand, that markets are all about excitement. Right? So everything is going to be exciting, and you don't hear the horror stories, right? And even locally in Belize, I remember, I think last year, or maybe it has been the year before, we had this circle, the woman's circle that was being created. And it was just a buzz. Oh, you could do this. It was a year before, right? And so people they jump in, and when you ask them to explain it for you, explain the maths behind it, they didn't understand the maths, but yet they jump in. And if you cannot understand something, don't invest. Don't go there. Don't put your money where you don't understand.
We'll expand on investment more later, right?
Yeah, we'll expand. And then the fourth one is never stop learning, right? Always keep an open mind. Always be a child to knowledge, financial knowledge. I am learning all the time. Every single day I'm reading financial articles on how best, because there's always something else coming up, always something new. But since Marlene talked about the savings, I decided to look at what we call innovative look at here. Syndicate or SUSU. Right? So we know that most people say, I can't save a dime, right? I just can't save. But many families, Belizean women, even housewives, have saved through the syndicate and through the SUSU. And so we have to use things that work for us. So it might be that, I can't save if I try to do it on my own or put it in the bank. So I'm speaking about those. I can't, and most people cannot save on their own, even myself. You have to tie your hand. What the syndicate or the SUSU does, it is forced savings because you're usually a part of a group. The group is social capital.
Yeah.
The group is forcing you to do. So it forces you to save. And we know how it works. You contribute an equal amount of money. Everybody is doing the same. It's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And so what's the other part of the SUSU? So you usually have a treasurer, usually the most trusted person, holds the money and is responsible for the payout, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and the treasurer usually draws last because they're the most trusted. And so this is how the standard SUSU.
Yeah.
It forces us to save. We can save in the amounts that we feel comfortable with. Maybe that SUSU, that the group that
Why
you
do
join.
you say susu?
SUSU is what's used in the Caribbean and Africa.
Okay.
And this method came from Africa, the Yoruba tribe, Yoruba tribe, and has been spread. So it's in a lot of African cultures all over, and even in Asian cultures. And let's go to the other slide.
Okay.
And then, you know, there's a draw, or the pool is paid out as agreed to schedule by one member of the club, usually whether it's a monthly draw or it's a weekly draw, and then it rotates through everybody.
Yeah.
And at the end, it starts over. So that's the general process of a SUSU, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's change the dynamics of the SUSU and be a little bit more innovative.
Okay.
And this is what has happened in Africa, because it's trying to use what people traditionally and culturally do to build on that, to teach people better saving habits. So we call this an investment SUSU syndicate. It's the same thing, however, the drawing now, you know, when you created a syndicate, how do you draw in Belize?
I think
What's
it's
the process?
monthly people do
But
it.
how do you choose who draws first?
Oh, I don't.
There you go.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
There
You pick the names?
They-
You pick
sometimes
a name,
they
or
pick-
some people choose
or-
which
or-
month they want, and then, unless there's an argument, then
okay.
yeah.
So innovation on the SUSU is you determine members' draw by how a member values their time. I mean, the time to get the money. So if you want to get the money first, you want to be the first draw, then you have to pay for that first draw. And here's the trick. How do you come up with that? So members drawing in the pool, less evaluation of time, and so there is a value in terms of when you draw, and your actual drawing is less than whatever you value that to be. And I'll explain that for our staff. So if you go to the next slide. So let's
Okay.
give an example, right?
Okay.
So let's say we have this syndicate with 10 members and their monthly contribution is $200.
Okay.
And so the standard draw would then be 2,000. That's the traditional syndicate. You put 200 over 10 months, you draw $2,000, regardless of how you draw. The new SUSU that's used a lot in Africa is the value of the position in the draw. So they're saying if you draw in month 1, that's more valuable than if you draw in month 10. Why? There's a lot of risk. I mean, the SUSU could break up before you hit that number 10.
Or everybody wants a Christmas one, or back to school one,
etc.
yeah.
Right. So the basic rule is that there's a 1% per position of the value of the draw. So if you're going to draw first, so the first position value would be 10% of the draw, right? And then the 10th position, the last person drawing, would only be 1% of the draw, okay?
So the longer I wait, the less I pay.
The less
so
I
it's
pay.
like paying for, you know, a prime spot. So if
Exactly.
I want first, I gotta pay for
First,
it.
exactly.
If I am willing to wait
Wait
till last,
last,
I will spend
you-
more.
Okay.
You'll
You
spend
spend
less.
Less, sorry, yeah, less.
So if you go to the other chart, so we like to cap what the individuals will pay. So make the maximum position for draw 12% of the draw.
Okay.
Like in credit union, 1% a month.
So it's
No
not
matter
actually
how-
paying; it's deducted from what you.
It's deducted.
Oh,
so you
even
notice
better.
the first position value, the standard draw would be 2,000. At 10%, the value of that position is 200. So the actual draw for the first position is 2,000 minus 200. So the person only gets 1,800 in their first draw. Now you might be asking, where does what's the $200 doing? It goes back to the pool.
To the pool.
So that's how the pool is saving.
But
understand?
and is that person's contribution then? The 200? That goes back
No, you
to
still
the
have
pool?
to put
Or
it
you have to
in.
put
No,
back
you have to
yours?
put the same thing. You're putting
it's
the
not
2,000.
that you're not gonna put it in.
It's not.
You have to put it in.
You have to put in your.
Yeah, so that's my question. What will happen with the money that's left over? Because if everybody's getting a little bit less than their actual 2,000, there's going to be some money
That's a
left
saving
behind.
of the pool. That's a pool saving, and it's divided. And it's equally divided. It's everybody has. If it's 10 members, everybody has 10% of 1/10 of whatever that pool saving is. So you're now saving in a pool. You're not just taking out money. You're not just doing a standard syndicate where you're putting $200 for 10 months, and at the end of the month you take out all that you had put in, right? You take out 2,000. So basically that is no savings. It's savings over a short period of time, but it's not growing your savings.
Yeah, that's
Right? So what in Africa they have learned is like we need to modify this so that we can actually grow the pool. And so the average member return, if you do the calculation, I won't go into the maths, is 5.5%. But let's explain how it works. The first person who draws, right, actually loses 4.5%, right? Why? Because
They got 18 instead of 2,000.
and they're, if you divide the total saving that is left, the total saving that is left with this example is $1,100. That's for the pool. And you take 1/10 of that, so everybody has a saving of 1/10. But the person who drew first, because of priority, actually paid 200, so they net. They actually lost $90. So what it does, it forces people to really prioritize. Do you really need that first draw? So it might be something that, you know, maybe it's the school is coming up, and when the SUSU started, you have to pay your school fees, and you need to pay those school fees, so you do the first draw, right, and so forth. The last member return is just $90, because remember, they paid $20 even in the last position for that position, and so they earn $90 over the 110, and so that's 4.5%. So it's evenly distributed between that person that drew first and that person that drew last, and that's because there's what you call time value of money.
Yes.
Money now is worth more than money later, right? And you practice that, and that's how you learn to save as a group, right?
What about the membership fee that you pay?
So they have a membership fee here. The syndicate have a membership fee. That should be part of the pool, but everybody does it differently. That should be part of the savings pool.
Okay.
Right? Another thing that this helps with growing this pool money is that it helps with somebody moving out. Let's say somebody decides, I'm not going to meet, you know, there's a syndicate, I can't pay, and the person just quits, and then somebody's in that pool that didn't get their full draw. This creates another insurance. This is also like a little insurance scheme, because if that happens, then the pool money, and the pool money means this one that is being left in the pool, can be used to pay that person, to have that person reimbursed. So it's an innovation on the savings, and I would really love to encourage our syndicates to start doing it, because besides just putting your money aside, right? So we consider the syndicates a very innovative way of saving, but then it's not saving in which your money is growing, right? So your money is not growing in the standard syndicate. By doing this investment SUSU, it works, it grows. And imagine if this rotates. So if we go to the next slide, after 10 rotation, this pool has $11,100 in saving. $11,100. So every member in that pool has $1,100 in interest, besides what they have been putting in. So it's a way of saving, and it's a way of building your money, right? In a way that, you know, you're with a social group. Maybe it's all your female friends that you went to school with. There's a lot of trust among the group. So that's the most important thing here, though. They say you only join syndicates with people that you absolutely trust and you have faith in, and the vice versa, right? And that can be worked out. And there's so many other innovations that can be done on this. People can trade their position.
You're going to have to do an Excel sheet and put this out there now so that people can just
I will send you guys an Excel sheet.
So, because it's a great idea. But I wanted to ask, so the purpose of the syndicate is to have money or more money than you would at a particular period of time.
Yes.
But if we're talking about living below our means, and I get it, and I spend it all, am I still saving?
No. That's why this withdrawal does force you to do that.
Okay.
Even if though it's small, it forces you to spend below your means.
Okay.
For workers, we've advocated, just as when you have a loan with a financial institution, you go to your employer if they have an HR department, and then usually a financial institution, if you're an employee will say, we need a salary deduction. We've done a lot of personal financial planning training with a lot of firms, and those firms are willing to do a deduction from their employee salary and send it to a financial institution for saving. And so you have to do the same thing. So Marlene, the truth is that very few people can manually save, can do it on their own.
Yeah.
Because when you step out, there's so much needs and wants that become needs, right?
Yeah.
You see this, you want this, you need to get a new shoes, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So it has to be forced for the habit to build. And this is all over the world, so it's not just Belize.
It's always better if you never see the money.
That's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so what the syndicate really does is it forces savings through social capital, right?
Okay.
You have to put that contribution because everybody in your group expects that at the end of the month you're going to come and put your part because you're going to draw. So it's a forced social saving. If you don't have that, if you're not into that, then if you're an employee, the next best thing is to go to your employer and say, please deduct X amount every month and send to. And you want it to go, like we've said before, to a financial institution, to a place that you never visit. And you don't want to get an ATM
Where
card.
you don't have an online or ATM.
Exactly. It should go to a different account than what we call your everyday account, where you have no ATM, Marlene. You don't want to have that. You don't want to be able to see it. It just disappears, right?
And you're heavily reluctant to get in that line.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So that's the way to force saving. And that's the first start, because you have to build that savings pool to then start investing or to grow your wealth.
Okay.
So your saving is just kind of putting together, we call it your army of money. The other thing is to start thinking about investing that money, right? And investing it wisely. And we said, invest with things that you know. And so I brought here a little bit of information on our domestic market for our audience to show them that it's important what the return on investment is. And the return is, if you put $1, right, what do you get at the end of the year? That's what we basically mean. So if you put $1 and you get like 2 cents, then it's a 2%, right? If you put $1 and you get 8 cents, then the return for the year is 8%, right? Or if you could do 100. So if you could go back to that slide. You notice that if your money is only growing at 2%, and let's understand the rate of the long-term rate of inflation in Belize has been pretty good, but it's been about 2%. If your money is only growing at that, basically you would not have grown any wealth, meaning your real purchasing power hasn't changed over the period. So you want to really grow it beyond 2%, and you see the difference. If your money grows at 2%, in a year, this is 25 years actually, the factor growth is only 3/4. So your money has only really increased by 3/4. If it grows at 8% in 25 years, long run, and this is not putting any additional money, just the money that you've put,
that you've got there,
it would have increased by a factor of 6 times.
Okay.
About 6 times. So the return on the investment is important to grow your wealth. So you really have to look around. And we'll go to the money market is considered, it's a big term, but it simply means short-term investment, meaning anything that if you put your money in it will give you back your principal within 1 year.
Can we just clarify, though, the portfolios that you spoke about before? So when you talk about a 2% interest rate, that's like your CDs or like the type of savings you can get in financial institutions. That's kind of the return that you're getting now. But where would you get an 8% return for long term?
I'll try to show you where we can.
Set me up.
So when we talk about portfolio in financial terms, it's just a basket of different investments that you have. It's really just a basket of all the different things that you have.
All the options.
All the options. You may have a CD in a bank, you may have a saving in a credit union, and you may have shares in a credit union. There's also shares in BTL or BL. So if you have a portfolio, you might have a mix of all of those, and we do encourage that mix. But let's talk about where you get your money. Over the last 10 years, savings in the banks have averaged just 2.8%. So it's really not much. Over the last 5 years, it has fallen significantly, and you've only averaged 1.4%. So which is just stagnant. Which is stagnant. And actually, you're losing money because inflation is going at about 2%. So your real value of your purchasing power has been falling. Time deposits have not done as badly over 10 years, the last 10 years, and we're talking from December of last year. Time deposits has paid about 4.2%. Let's say 4.2%. That means if you have $100 in the bank and you kept it there for 1 year, you'll get $4.20 on a time deposit. But last 5 years, 2.36%. So again, fallen. So we are in a very low interest rate environment. So to
You
get
don't
the
make
higher
money
rate,
putting it
Putting
into
it
the
in.
bank.
Okay.
It's just-
yet it's important to put something there. You know,
Yeah.
you want to put like a supporting base
Yeah.
in the bank, right? But that's not where you're going to get your 8%. So if you look at, and I'm going to skip this slide because it's just showing the spread. It's just showing that there's been a narrowing of long-term saving versus short-term.
Okay.
So let's start about where you can make
Middle market,
more
okay.
money.
Okay.
You have to
Okay.
put your money in more risky assets. That's what people have to understand.
Higher the risk, the higher the return.
Higher
Yeah,
return?
risk
Cool.
drives return in anything, right?
Okay.
The higher the risk,
The higher
right,
the
the
return.
return is expected. And if it's not the case, then you just don't put your money in it, right?
All right. So here we go. With
if you look at BTL in about 2009, BTL returned about 6.3%. Time deposits was giving you 8.3%. So it was better to just keep your money in the time deposits.
So this
Carry-
was in financial institutions versus investing
Investment
in
in
BTL.
BTL.
Okay.
Yes.
It would have made sense to have your money in time
Yeah, in
deposits.
2009 it was 8, yeah.
Now, in 2014, BTL is giving about 2.8% on their dividends, and time is giving you about 2.87%. So you have to put your money where you can get a higher return.
which would have been their BTL, 4.8.
4.8. In 2018, last year, it went down a little bit, 4.10, but look at time deposits,
Even
1.99. And so the spread between the risky assets and just the safe time deposit is 2.11. So you want to
Yeah.
put your money in the 4.10. Now, you're not putting all your money. With portfolio, a basket, you're diversifying, you're spreading your money around, right? So you're putting money in
You
different
have to have the
things.
safe ones and you have
The more
risky
risky
ones.
ones so that your portfolio overall grows better.
Okay.
Now let's look at BTL again. Oh, average over the last 5 years. So it's always good to look at the long run. Just 5%. And over the last 5 years, 4.58%. So it's still better than over the last 5 years keeping your money in time deposits.
Okay.
So you would get a 2.2% premium over having your money just in the bank. And that adds up. 2.2% over 5 years, every 5 years will add up in terms of what your nest egg is. And that's the thing that you have to consider is slow, cumulative
Yeah.
growth, right?
And you know, I think one of the key things that we're talking about here, which perhaps we haven't clarified, is just that we're talking long term. We're
Yes.
talking, what are you going to do 10, 20 years from now? Or what are your kids going to do, need 10 to 20 years from now?
Yeah.
Whether it's a college fund, retirement fund, house fund.
Exactly.
It's not about what I'll be able to use next Christmas.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not that.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
normal little
Yeah.
talk.
So for that, you have short-term savings. So if
Yeah,
you want to
that's
say
a
do
whole
a
different
vacation, you may
ballpark.
say I'll save 50% and I'll borrow 50%,
Yeah.
and then you save for that purpose. But no, this is growing your wealth.
Yeah.
And really, like I said, a simple calculation for wealth is add up everything that you owe, and then everything that you own, and take the difference, and that's really your wealth, right? So everything that you owe, and have a value for them, right?
Yeah.
So that would be your, what you call your net worth or wealth. But really, some of that net worth is in hard assets like land that cannot be quickly materialized into cash. So sometimes you call it like dead wealth. You can't do much with it, right? If you look at now the other equity investment, Belize Water Services Limited, they were paying some really good dividends in 2009, about 10%. And so they were even better than the time deposits, 1.7% over time deposits.
Okay.
They started to make a lot of investments in infrastructure, and when you make a lot of investments as a utility company, infrastructure,
takes
your
down.
dividends is going to fall. So that went down to 5% in 2014. Still better than time, but in 2018 they are back up
They're
at
back up.
7.5%. So Marlene, the thing that you can put it in to get close to 8% is
BW.
There's
BWS.
the 8%. It does exist.
And it's one of the things about Belize Water Services that people don't understand is they are actually the only water provider. They're actually a monopoly.
Monopoly.
Yeah.
They're regulated, and they tend to pay a consistent dividend return.
Okay.
7.5% over the last 5 years going back. You keep your money there, and again, it's a portion of your money. So let's see, like the last 10 years, 7.25%. So you've had your money there over the last 10 years, you would have earned at least on average 7.25% every year. And if you could roll that over at that rate, there is a great growth taking place there.
Well,
Over time,
People are starting to call what a BWS,
BWS right now.
they will
make
find
an
that
investment.
getting shares from BWS is hard.
Yeah. Well,
If you try
we'll
to-
talk
to
about that,
purchase
right?
it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
And then the average so over the last 5 years, 6.5%. So that's not bad in
Yeah.
this very low rate environment. In fact, people look at the stock exchange on the news and, oh, the market is this, the market is that. When you look at the average return on a stock exchange, it's about 6% over the very long run, 30 years, etc.
Yeah.
So at 6.5%, that's not bad, and that's what our market can give with these types of assets, right? So you're looking at a 4.14% spread over just having your money in the bank. Again, it's part of your money.
Yeah.
Some of your money should be in the bank. Some of your money should be in different assets.
So that's because when you talk about the risks associated with these types of investments, if anything happens, and we can't really predict what, you need to know you have a security somewhere else.
Yes. So things always happen. Remember, we'll look at BL shortly, right?
Yeah.
And exactly right. There it is. In 2009, BL paid zero dividends.
What?
Yeah.
So and I remember there was a old pensioner who had called me at the time, and he had a lot of his money in BL, both in the debentures and in shares. And if you recall, debentures in BL used to pay about 12%. Those were fantastic investments at the time when BL just came to market, and they had to give the market a huge
And debentures
return.
is giving money for a loan versus shares
shares,
that own
exactly.
a part of the
bond,
Yeah.
the loan.
Okay.
And when they stopped paying, he was earning nothing, and he was retired because they were not paying any cash, and they were living on the retirement. And then nobody wanted to buy either BL shares or BL bonds because it was chaos, right? Remember, this is when BL was saying that they're insolvent, and then government was deciding what they're going to do, and so there's complete uncertainty. That's not the time that you wanted to own it. So he owned it, and that's the thing about the portfolio diversification, as you mentioned. You wanted to have your things in a basket of different things because he would have been able to survive through this. I mean, he did survive. He would have been able to do better with this if he didn't have everything in that. So that's the kind of risk, Marlene, that you talk about.
Yeah.
Even when these companies make money, they can declare a lower dividend or no dividend at all. You know, the board might say we need to invest the money in infrastructure to grow the business. So
what
there is a
you're
risk.
saying is you cannot rely on being able to collect on dividends. Once you put that money there, you may or may not get something for that year.
Exactly
or any
right.
subsequent year.
Or any subsequent.
So you
But that's the high risk situation there.
Yeah, that's the risk return thing. But this is the case also in savings, right? Because we looked at how saving rates have fallen from 8% to, if you have a large lump sum in the bank, you're getting like maybe 0%, right? So it's in all investments, and so that's why the diversification came in. Because if BL is not doing well, maybe your Belize Water Services Limited is doing well, or maybe your HRCU is doing better. So you know your basket is performing overall. One is not doing well. In 2018, for example, so 2009, BL paid 0%, but by 2018 they had paid 10% dividend. So that was the highest investment return in the country. That's legitimate. 10% return, which is almost 8% spread over time deposit. So if you had BL shares like government and social security and they collected on that 10%, that was a fantastic year for them. And if you had the ability to have been invested in that would have been very good for them. One thing we have to say with BL has to issue more shares and give the market an opportunity, especially since you're looking at jacking up our energy price.
You're softening them up, right? You're softening them up.
You're just sending out some messages
you know,
there.
if you have to pay more in energy costs, the way to mitigate or offset that, if you own BL shares, then you expect that your dividend should go up, right? If the company performs just as good or a little bit better. So you offset a higher energy cost by more income coming from your investment. If you look at BL again over the last 10 years, however, despite that sharp 0% in 2009, on average they paid 6.21%, and over the last 5 years, 11.53%. There was an extraordinary year in which BL paid a 20% dividend. This was like absolutely fantastic. They probably don't want me to say that because
I see your smile. Ervin's thinking about what that year was for him.
That was a good year, right? Good year, 20% dividend. Again, over time, about 9.17%.
Okay.
All right, so I understand that we get what's happening here, but I really want to break this down for people who don't have as much, who haven't been exposed as much to the investment market. How do you relate this to an everyday person who has no idea what it means to invest and your return, and what is the difference between, okay, I put $100 in the bank every year, and I'll only live off the interest, the 1% that comes in. I don't. But how do you explain the difference between the two in terms of what I can use, not use, spend, or just see in a bank account per se?
Very good. So we know that these type of investments are called equity or stock, which means that you're taking an ownership position in the company. Now, if you're in an ownership position, you're locked in there for life or until you can sell that ownership to somebody else who wants to now take an ownership position, which is different from the bank or the credit union, where if you put your money in the bank savings, the following day you can probably go in and take that out. If it's in a time deposit, within 3 months or 6 months or a year, it will mature and you can get it, or you can break it and take back out your cash.
Okay.
Equity investments can only be liquidated by selling it to somebody else who wishes to purchase it, right? So that's the first thing to know. But one of the things I want to really encourage is that investment or the saving syndicate to start thinking about as a group, to talk with each other about why don't we put some of our savings now from the pool into some of these investments to get a better return for the pool.
You get better as you're talking. It gets better as you
because
talk.
it's clarifying. I mean, we don't learn this unless you were a business student. You don't learn this at all.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about when you say buy a share or a debenture? And what are the costs? I mean, people think of this as what the millionaires do. Not us everyday Belizeans.
And we have to become the average everyday Belizean to own our companies, right? Because if you don't, you're not going to create the wealth. You see what we're getting in the banks, right? In terms of saving 1 point something %, that's not going to take you anywhere. I'll be honest with you, it can't take you anywhere. So you have to start to look first at these, and then we'll talk about some additional type of investment, but first at these. So the simple thing is to call the companies themselves.
Okay.
So, and I really want to encourage our syndicates to start doing it, to say, okay, let's innovate and let the treasurer make a call to Belize Water Services Limited and ask if there are available shares for sale. Because you have to ask, they don't normally advertise, and usually there's an insider kind of move there where the insiders
get first access.
Right?
No, it is. I mean, that's how it works.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
But I think if
sometimes
more and more
they do have to publicize it.
No. Well, if the company is issuing it, yes. But if it's somebody that is an owner that is selling it, they would probably just go to Belize Water Services Limited and say, hey, I want to sell my Belize Water Services Limited shares. Could you put it in a little queue for me? And because the shares are paying so well, usually the insiders and the senior managers know, well, I'll buy this because I'm going to get about 7.5% and I'm getting 1%. But I want to really encourage our syndicates to innovate and then to start making those calls. Because when it happens now, companies like Belize Water Services Limited can see, well, you know what? We can fund some of our investment not only by going to the bank, but by issuing new shares to individuals interested. So a company can issue new shares. So basically, you have to call these companies BTL, BEL, Belize Water Services Limited. Usually it's their corporate secretary office and said, we're interested in purchasing some shares. Is there any available? Here's my contact, here's my information.
And ideally it should be a list, right? So
you
move up on the list. When it comes available, the list.
You take that,
But we don't have any knowledge of whether or not it works.
But does it make business better for the company and of course for the country that we're investing in it?
Think about it. BL, if they borrow, they might be borrowing at 9 or 10%. But when they issued their debentures, they did that at 5.5%, 6%. So it's cheaper for them. It's cheaper for them if household own their debt than the bank, right? So yes, it would work. It was a win-win situation.
So like if you get a loan and you have to pay back the bank 9% versus having to pay people back 5%, which is the 5% is far more than the 1% they would have gotten in the bank.
So that's how everybody would win. So the same syndicate, I would want them to start being a little investment club. So they should have these little conversations and start thinking, hey, if we're going to not just save and just take out all the money and we're going to keep a pool, then let's think about how we can invest that pool. And let's look at what is available in the market. I think we're finished with BL. Is there another company? Okay, so here was just a comparison. And so it basically showed you that in terms of the return, if you look at the last 2018, 5.5, 6.6. Belize Water Services was 4.7. I think these numbers are wrong, my friends.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Well,
This doesn't look right.
Yeah, this 1.82 should be the money market.
Yeah, let's switch the slide.
Let's people. So sorry about that. But we'll leave that slide.
Yeah.
But overall, you're gonna get more money by putting your money in equities, in ownership, than you're going to get by just keeping it in the bank.
So you've spoken about local options, and you had the little joke there of Bitcoin. How much do you find people are looking to invest in the stock market or in other investments like that? I mean, Bitcoin is one of those really iffy. I feel that people have just missed the mark on it. You know, it was great when 50 Cent earned his million.
Yeah, asset right now.
Talk about high risk.
It's a speculative thing.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, and just for our audience, we have capital controls, and so that's important to know, which means that you cannot take money legally out of the country without central bank's permission. So to a great extent, we can't invest outside at this point in time. We can't invest outside, so we have to look internally. The great news is that there's a lot of opportunities internally, just not structured, just not presented to Belizeans to invest.
Makes sense.
And you know, you can invest in family businesses as well. Again, things that you know, people that you trust.
Yeah, but how do you bind them? I mean, that's how I feel about. I don't do syndicates because that shows my trust issues. I'm sure. It's just I understand. You know, next month somebody has a really rough month and they can't make the payment. Before I can starve my kids, I'm going to give up my syndicate. You know, I feel bad for my friends, but life is real.
So that's not a group
that's my outlook.
The individuals who usually join syndicates, it's usually also because they don't have access to those monies in any other means. So financial institutions, etc. So they will sell their child to pay that syndicate. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean that syndicate is their lifeline. And they need it, right?
Yeah, some people are very loyal.
And so they need it. But you know, we've had the money lenders have gotten into the picture, and now a lot of people are borrowing. We did the payday loan stuff and are getting themselves a little bit into trouble with that. But syndicate is based on social capital. So it's based on a social capital and a trust that your friends will isolate you if you fail to meet the payment. You don't care, right? I don't care. They can isolate me all they want.
Thank you.
So it's social capital, right? So there's no other way of binding people. But they've found out that social capital is a very powerful kind of capital.
Yeah, because typically people don't want to be isolated.
Yeah, I don't want to be, you know.
But you spoke of investing in businesses as well. We have quite a number of young entrepreneurs who are trying their hands at something new. How do you help in investing in a business but still protect yourself as well?
So good. So the first thing to understand is when you're investing in a startup, invest what you're prepared to lose, right? Because the startups have a high attrition rate. Right? And you mentioned how do you bind them to the investment, right? So there's a lot of startups. We encourage startups to create private limited companies because that allows them to then sell shares in those companies to a family member. And so now you're legally invested and they're legally binded by those arrangements in their laws. And typically, again, we encourage these startups to offer some kind of what you call guaranteed dividends when they get profitable to a family member. So it might not be the high 10, 12%, but they may say, okay, we could give you a 5% guaranteed before we take out any money out of what we're doing. So that's one way of the startups to work together and to get family members involved. We encourage startups to have, a lot of startups are brilliant in what they're doing, but poor in accounting, poor in keeping financial records, which is a challenge then for you to invest, right? Because you're saying, well, your business is looking good, but I have no idea how you're making this money. And I don't know what your cost is, so I'm very scared of losing my money. So again, we have to encourage a startup. If you're not into accounting, hire a bookkeeper to set up your accounts for you and to keep proper accounts for you so that when you're searching out there for a family member to invest and maybe even a syndicate to put some money in it, you can show them, here's what I'm making, etc. The other thing we also tell startup is to go through a financial institution with your payments. A lot of startups, a lot of small business individuals like to just do purely cash transactions right over the table. And so you have no documentation to show or evidence to show people that you're making money, right? But if you can show people bank statements of your business,
And things are flowing for you.
flowing in and
Yes,
out,
yes.
then it matches with your accounting that they're showing.
Okay, so for people who are watching, I'm sure they're thinking, okay, I got to call Ervin this morning. Maybe I have 500, let's say 1,000. I got my first syndicate this month, right? I collected. Where can I go? Where can I do these investments that you talk about? What are you going to give them as I'm putting you on the spot for free financial advice?
Yes,
Well,
she is.
the first thing I would say to
With your
them,
1,000.
with the 1,000, if you don't have a credit union account, open one with the 1,000.
Yeah.
That's the first thing, because you need to start with basics. So I mean, I think HRCU paid 4.5% dividend. I think St. John's was 5%. So that's not bad. So
Yeah.
open a savings account with your credit union, and it's basically an equity account.
Yeah.
I would not say to go and put your money somewhere else initially.
Yeah.
You have to start building, all right? So build that savings account up over a period of time before you start thinking BL, BTL, etc. I think the syndicate would be a better tool to use to invest in those things because it's long term. And within the syndicate, you can create liquidity. What do I mean by that? Because the 10 members of the syndicate would own the BTL shares. Let's say a member needs to sell their equity. They can sell it within the group. So the group can just pay them and then they're out. So it becomes liquid within that group.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that instead of doing it individually on your own, at least
Yeah.
initially.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
But start with the
He's gonna
credit
call
union.
up his friend, turn,
Start with the credit union.
He's like, let's start
and
a
then-
susu.
Yeah. So start with the credit unions
Yeah.
and then the banks
All right.
before you go into equities.
All
this was-
right.
this was good.
And what about just warnings to people? You know, if you're trying to save, earn more, just grow your wealth.
Yeah.
What's one thing you tell people? Just don't do this.
Definitely one of the things is, like you said, wherever you're saving your money. So if you do put that money in a credit union, you want to put it, I don't like to say HRCU. HRCU is a difficult, a lot of people use it. But you don't want to put the money in where you're going to be doing your everyday transactions because you're going to touch the money.
Yeah.
That's I think the first rule of saving. You have to have
first
it far,
no-no.
the first no.
Yeah.
You have to put it far away. And you have to, again, no debit cards, no accessibility to those funds. You want to really lock it off from yourself. You want to discipline yourself in that way. Force discipline as opposed to try to discipline yourself mentally. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go there, or I'm not going to use this debit card when I need it, because, you get into a little fender bender and you'll think, I need to go there.
this one.
And you'll find that if you lock away that money, you're going to come up with creative ideas of how to make the money that you need for other things.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Excellent. That's a very good way to put it there.
And the last thing I will say, and this is, some people say, I just can't make it. We have to start looking at other sources of income. So other sources of income is not a bad thing. I know people say, well, I can't do anything else. But what are your talents? They said God gives us many talents. So you might be using one as an anchor, but might be another talent skill that you have that's right close to what you do. So for you guys, hosting a show, that's an extra income, right? So if they're having something at, they're having a pageant, right? Boom, boom, boom. That's money there, and it's based on the skill that you already have.
Yeah.
So
Or learn a trade.
Or learn a trade, right?
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in and having this conversation with us.
You're
Excellent.
welcome.
And next year we'll give our reports too.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're having honest conversations this morning, and this one is how to get fit when you're obese. That's the conversation coming up, so stay tuned.